Our last category of crimes that we're going to talk about in terms of classifying crimes is actually something that is not even recognized as a category under the law. This is where that tension between how sociologists see things versus how lawyers see things, or how police officers or judges see things, come into play. And that is the category of victimless crime. So people often say, why is that person being charged? There was no victim in the crime. It's a victimless crime. Something like prostitution between consenting adults, willing buyer, willing seller. You know, if I can buy a bottle of wine I want from a liquor store, why can't I buy sex service from a brothel? Why not, as long as we're all consenting adults? Now, sociologically, that might make sense. It also might make sense if you want to advocate for a change in the law. However, from a legal perspective, there is no such thing as a victimless crime, because society and the state is the victim when there's a violation of criminal law. Let's say that again. Where there is a violation of criminal law, by definition, we in our legal code and in our political system understand the government, the state, the society to be the victim, even if the individual victim does not feel themselves to be a victim, whether it's the prostitute or her client, whether it's the drug seller or the drug buyer. They might both consider themselves not to be criminals because there was the willing buyer, willing seller, but legally speaking, we consider it a social harm because of the violation of the criminal law. So what those individuals think is irrelevant. Let's wrap up this discussion about classifying crime with a few points. The first comes from the point we noted about advocacy. Criminal law changes. It doesn't stay the same. And arguably, one of the ways we can measure the likelihood that a criminal law is going to change is the extent to which there is a gap between public agreement on whether a law is legitimate and legal, or with whether there's a gap between legitimacy and legality. Legitimacy is the idea that we have agreement or consent on something. Legality is the idea that something is written in the law. If we agree that something is not only illegal, but we all are in agreement that it should be illegal, it's not going to change. But where you have something, and we see this now with marijuana as a good example, where more and more people are saying, hey, why should marijuana be illegal? But the law says it's illegal. The more there's a gap between the two, the more likely you're going to see legal, sociological, or other definitions of law change. The next point we want to make in conclusion is that there are a lot of overlaps between and among these different categories in terms of classifying crime. And finally, we want to underscore the point that there's a difference between sociological, legal, and other definitions of crime. It doesn't make them inherently right or wrong. They're just different, and we need to pay attention to those distinctions.